So remember that I said that the government is advising all households to be prepared for 72 hours of survival self-sufficiency. There are emergencies impending, and we have, for instance, communication that is going down, power outages, severe weather, and disruption to essential services. So I promised everybody on a live the other day that I would bring in somebody very spectacular and very special to come and help us prepare for that event for 72 hours. And this is who I have roped in. As the government have actually said that we need to practice the plan, here is my superstar. So this is the wonderful Dave Connell. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Giorgio.
How are you?
I'm very well. We're in this beautiful campsite in Knighton. It's a lovely day, and we're here to practice some of our skills
And prepare
for
our plan. Okay, so what are we looking at? So when the government are saying that 72 hours, that we have to prepare and we have to have bags together and we have to, prepare in a way, what is it that they're actually saying?
I think it's really just putting a plan together so that you are able to be self-sufficient in all your needs to maintain your physiology for 72 hours. I think in a nutshell, that's kind of what they're talking about.
Okay, so for instance, if the water is turned off, what is it that we need to do?
Well, water is the most essential thing. We can only really go 3 days without water. So water is one of our top priorities when it comes to preparing for surviving for any period of time. Should that time come, then the thing to do is to literally just store all the water you can while it's still in the pipes. So what that means is putting the plug in your bath, completely filling your bath, fill your sinks, fill your kettles, fill your pans. If you've got water containers, fill those too. The average human probably needs about 1 gallon at least a day. So that's quite a lot of water. That's just for cooking and for essential drinking. So you really need to get a grip of that in the first place, and also at the same time to have some form of redundancy. So if that doesn't work out for you, that you have a plan about how you are then going to source, filter, and then sterilize or treat your water, whichever method that might be.
Okay, Dave, so if I don't have any water and any backup plan, how do I ensure that I find the right source of water, and how do I ensure that the water is processed properly for it to be safe to drink?
What we should do now is go outside and look at where we might source water from, because we have to find the water in the first place, and ideally want to find the freshest water that we possibly can. And that might well come from springs that come up from the ground. That will be the perfect source because it's been aquified underground. Failing that, what we'll do is we'll go to the river and we'll have a look at the river and see how clear it is, make a judgment as to whether that's a good place to find it. But there are many other sources of water as well. We could wait while it rained, for example, and collected that rainwater. Then what we've got to do is we have to filter it. So that means taking out any sediment that's within that water. Once we've removed that sediment, then the next part of the process is that we have to make it safe. We have to either purify it or sterilize it, or do something with it that will render anything that's in that water harmless, or filter it out completely.
So Clark, we're going. I know I had an ice cream on the way, but
Yeah, thanks,
hey ho,
Molly.
sorry about that. But we're now going to go and follow Dave to go and get the water.
Oh no, we've got a blimbo. Blimbo, what's that? See from go in the drop out and it's only. So we've got a really interesting place here where we've got some flowing water. But we don't know how good that is. But we've also here as well, a bit more accessible, we've got some still water. So the natural jump into conclusions, you'd turn around and say, do you know what, flowing water is always going to be better than stagnant water. So that's a question that we're going to test with our water tester, and we're going to ask Dave what his views are on what does a good water supply look like. So we've got this water tester from Amazon. There's loads of them on there. This one is quite good because it doesn't give you like a readout as to what's in the water. It just tells you whether its purity is good, it's high purity or not. So it gives you a range from 0 to 999. So anything in the 0 to 100 range comes out as high purity. So that's the range we're looking at, 0 to 100. 0 to 50 is obviously better, but up to 100 is good. I'm going to go up here because there seems to be less algae and stuff here. So let's get some water from there. Got my handy test kit. And that's showing 121.
Yep, I'd say that's 121. Has that been 30 seconds? Look at all the stuff in there though.
Yeah, so that's 121. So here we go, here in the flowing bit. I'm gonna take a bit out of the flowing bit and let's have a quick look. 121. Coming down the bank, here's the easiest bit to get water from. So let's just try and get a bit without any bits in. And just put it in the kit.
127.
127. That's holding firm around 127, isn't it? On those results, over there, there's the better water, which I'd have thought where it was flowing would have been better. So I think we need to ask Dave as to what should we do, like based on that range of results we've got in just this short stretch of river. I think we need advice. Okay, Dave, so you've seen the test with, I mean, one, what do you think of that?
I think it's a useful piece of kit, actually. I think it's a useful piece of kit.
Because it's pretty simple, easy to use, gives it. Yeah.
I'm curious, what results did you get across the span? Because we're only dealing with a short, more probably about 30 foot of river.
So in the swampy bit, it was 121, and then in the flowing bit, it was 121, and then here, just in like this little alcove bit under the tree, that was 127.
27.
So we have a bit of a variety, and when we did it earlier, there was actually even greater variety at some point. So what this does is it gives us an idea of purity based on the amount of suspended matter that there is in the water. Okay, so it's a useful guide, and actually it's been quite a useful experiment because the conventional wisdom is that you go for the fast flowing water. For me, given the opportunity, I probably wouldn't collect my water here, especially if I was using improvised methods of water purification. What I would be doing is I'd be walking upstream to get away from this agricultural land, because we don't know what that suspended matter actually is. It could be viruses, it could be bacteria, it could be protozoas, it could be metals, it could be chemicals from the field. So not knowing what the chemicals are, I would, if I was improvising my water filtration and purification process, I would probably, if it was possible, not collect my water from here. I would walk further upstream, and I would go to as far as I could go to collect the purest water I can from the source. Because as this river flows down, it's a beautiful looking river, as this river flows down, it's going to pick up all this particulate matter and carry it with it. However, what I would recommend is that you consider buying some form of filtration and purification kit, and I'll show you that stuff now.
Is that because, like, if you were in a rush, you could use this water, but then you would have to filter it? Ideally, if you had time, you'd go upstream, but if you didn't have time and you needed water, somewhere like here would be okay, but you would need to process that water to make it good enough to drink.
Absolutely. I mean, we should never say that water that is gathered from a wild source in the UK is free from contamination. It's a well-known fact that pretty much all rivers in Western Europe and in the UK, unless you're really close to their source, are contaminated, and so we just don't take that risk.
What are the dangers? Like, what sort of things are we looking at risk-wise? What kind of illnesses could we get?
Well, I mean, the big one for me with what's waterborne, is Cryptosporidium, particularly as things are passing through agricultural land. It's a particularly nasty virus, and once it gets into your gut, it causes all sorts of inflow into your gut, so you get really bad diarrhea from it, and ironically, from the water that you're drinking, you become dehydrated as a consequence. And then there are many bacteria and protozoas that can do you harm from within water. And that's why we have to go through this process.
So-
You can't assume that any water's safe.
So that's why ideally go further upstream, closer to the source.
Yep.
If not, process it. But even then, even when we go further upstream, if we still don't get below that 100 and close to that 50 mark, we'll still be looking to filter anyway, won't we?
Yeah, I think we're still going to filter anyway. It doesn't really matter what that says, is that because we're not going to necessarily have that with us. So,
Yeah.
we are going to make an assumption that the water is contaminated and go through selection of the water. And there's not just rivers and puddles, but you might want to gather rainwater, you might transpiration from leaves on trees, by putting plastic around them, you can make solar cells. There's all sorts of different ways. And the best thing to do is actually to go up into these hills here and look for sources, the springs that come up from the ground, because they are beautifully pure water, and often being filtered from its time flowing underground. So that would be a really good thing to find, and certainly that's what we do in the jungle. We look for places in the jungle where the source of the springs that are running into the main rivers. Here, however, we're going to assume that it's contaminated, and I've brought some kits with me that I can show you that will deal with the problem with that. It doesn't really matter what that says, whether it's severely contaminated or it's still stagnant water over there. This bit of kit is going to purify it.
So, Dave, we see this kit here. This is Sawyer kit, but there are other makes available, aren't there? So,
Absolutely, yeah.
But Sawyer's a make that you trust. And is this something that you carry around with you on every expedition you go on?
Yes, so I've got two systems here. One is an individual system, and I carry this in my rucksack, and this goes absolutely everywhere with me. It's got the capability of at least purifying 100,000 litres of water.
Oh, wow.
The other thing that I like about it is it allows you to back clean the actual filter device with this syringe, and because for me, ideally equipment has either got to be essential or has got to have dual purpose, I can use this syringe, and if I need to clean wounds with it, I can just put a cannula onto that, and I can use fresh water to mechanically clean out wounds. So the syringe is useful not just for cleaning the filter, but also it's useful for medicine as well. And this is an individual filter. This is the filter that I take away when I've got a group to look after. So this goes on expedition when I'm with groups or doing work for TV. This stuff is with me. And so essentially the way it works is you've got it's a system that's got a filter and bags. I only carry one bag with my mini filter because actually I have a bladder bag on my back that I use as my clean water bag. So this, and I've marked it on top there, this is my dirty bag, and on the family version, the 4 litre version, the dirty water bag is this. So this is the collection bag. This is the collection bag. And what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to collect my water from the source, and then grey is always dirty, and so I'm going to connect the tube when I'm ready to filter it, because I only need to take that down to the river. I can leave this back at base camp or in the vehicle or wherever. When I get it back to base camp, I just plug that into the bottom, and we'll have a go with it in a minute. And then you'll see that there's an arrow on there. That's direction of flow. So grey goes to grey, and then that connects into there. And I can suspend the whole thing if I need to. And what will happen is, through gravity, okay, I'll put that up in the air like so, okay, and the water will come through there, down the pipe, into the filter, and will drip into this. And this has got the capability of purifying 4 litres of water in about 15 minutes, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. And that is down to less than 0.2 microns.
And that's like the equivalent of 2 of those big bottles of Evian or Highland Spring or whatever you do. So that's quite a lot of water.
And of course, I mean, the way we used to operate in the jungle is that normally in the morning we would purify all the water, that will get dished out. The next lot of batch of water will be there filling up and running through, and you know, we just keep, somebody has a duty to do that all day long. So this is ideal for a family, because you do need obviously a regular source of water. You cannot be without this. The other thing that I like about this is if you go to places like St. Petersburg, for example, which is known for its dodgy water systems, is that you can just plug that onto the pipe, onto a tap, and then so now if you've got a dodgy set of water, or you've got some water on a farm that's not potable, you can plug that onto the end.
Oh, so like when you hear about people going to Egypt on their holidays, Ramsey's Revenge, you can take one of these, plug it into your tap, and you've got drinkable water for your family. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And the great thing about this is I can also use it with this by just taking that bit off there. Okay. We'll just get, I'll just use this bit here where it's flowing. I won't fill it up completely, obviously.
It doesn't matter about bits getting in it.
No, but this is the dirty bag, so
yeah.
you know anything can go in this.
And really, in terms of water depth, you just need enough to fill the bag.
Because it doesn't matter what it picks up.
Yeah.
You know, even though we know it's contaminated. Well, it's contaminated, but it's still probably drinkable according to your gadget. But would you trust it? No. I certainly wouldn't, knowing what I know about disease and so forth. So I haven't filled it completely. We'll take it back and we'll connect it up. And I'll just plug that in there. And just clamp that off. Okay, that's now clamped off at the bottom.
I've got the bag.
Have you got the bag?
Yep.
Excellent. We'll plug that into there. That's all now
So the
set.
grey is going from the grey into the blue,
Yep.
and you've got the filter, yeah.
So why have you clamped it off? Is that
just because gravity will start it coming down anyway. I don't want to lose any water, so I've just clamped it off while we connect the rest of the stuff. I'll release the clamp now, and that will now start doing its thing and just start filling up. Make sure that it's turned off. Bottom, and we'll just leave that, and we'll come over to the mini filter. So the mini filter in its most simplest form, what we can do is we can quite simply just fill this, and again I'll put some water into this. And I know it's going to be my dirty water bottle.
There's a handy tip, people. Comes with 2 bags. Mark one as your dirty bag. Mark one and leave the other one so it's your clean bag.
Is you can actually bastardize these and use something like a bladder bag and use that as a dirty water bag, especially if it's got a big wide thing, and then just and then all you do is you get a bit of tubing, okay, from this and attach it to the bladder bag, or use your bladder bag tubing and put a cap in between. So again, you've got a direction of flow, so I'm just going to put that onto there and screw it on. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I could just drink from that directly. I'll just put a straw on the top of that.
Is that because everything, the filtration bit is happening there?
Yeah, you can see it's coming out like that.
Okay, so we could test that now.
You could use this as a straw. Look at that, the flow goes that way. Okay, I could literally just drink direct from the source. Okay. What
So,
you would do is then you would draw, you put it in a cup or whatever, draw some clean water into here, attach that to the end of the filter, and just
because that's
not clean water through. Then I wouldn't bother, but certainly when you finish this trip or you're going home and you'd like to store this, Always backwash it. Always backwash it.
So it's always good practice, keep a little bit back, put it into the syringe and wash it through.
Or just take the water and wash it through.
Yeah.
You know, once you're home, that's fine.
Once you
Right, Clarky, let's get testing. So we've just done it again and it is now at 100, which is
high purity apparently. Cheers.
Do you know what? It actually tastes like water, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's no chemical taste, there's no metal taste, it actually
It's
tastes like
actually
water.
delicious.
Yeah. It's probably better than your tap water.
It is.
Well, there you have it. The Saints and Sinners have brought you Dave Connell, the survival specialist, with Clark and me. Thank you very much.